crazy.
All righty. I think we're live. Now, since I moved the excuse me. Since I moved the time for this from last week, I don't know if the notifications went out. So it's probably going to take a few minutes for people to find out that we're up here doing the live. Yeah, they're starting to pop in.
Oh, yeah.
So I do apologize for skipping last week, but something came up at the very last second that I just could not avoid and I had to bounce. So I do apologize for that. Hello, Joseph. Hello, Rachel. It's book club night.
Oh, and remember last week somebody was saying I should have like an intro or who I am or whatever.
Oh, yeah. Tell everybody who you are.
Well, I came up with links or something, but so like I can advertise myself.
Oh, good.
I have
Absolutely.
to figure out what I did with them. Where did it go?
But for those of you that don't know, Grendelson is one of my subscribers, and he was in the chat here for the first few weeks of the book club, and then he wanted to come on and join me, so that's why he is here. And I appreciate that very much. He read this book when it first came out, so he's got a lot of really interesting insight that I like to hear, and rereading it now in 2026. For those of you that are just joining us for the first time, my name is Natalie. This is my so-called book club. This is Grendelson joining me tonight. We are reading Generations by Strauss and Howe. It's pretty cool. It's kind of the origins of their generational theory. And they were the ones that created millennials. They pointed out Gen X, even though they called us 13ers. But they were the first ones to really recognize the different generations in the post-baby boom. And then they went back into history and found that, hey, there's some kind of patterns here that we maybe should talk about. So, yay! No longer a slacker. Downloaded the book, read up to our place, and rewatched the past shows. Well, thank you, Rachel. That's amazing. I feel like that deserves an applause if I can find it. Awesome. I love it. So,
links.
Oh yeah, get your links so you can that's all right. We can promote you at the end of the show too. So you get them if you get them ready.
Okay. Well, yeah. I have 2 links for the those summaries I sent you. I have links to those if people want them.
Let's see if I got them pulled up here.
Yeah, you can just post.
Oh, the PDF links that you sent me, or the that was that no.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. I'm not seeing them, but that's okay. Just so everybody knows, we are. See, I know we finished part 1 up to chapter 6. Okay, so what we're going to do tonight is we are actually going to kind of glaze over chapter 7 and 8 really fast with some just kind of a summary, and then we're going to dive into chapter 9, which is the Civil War cycle. And the reason I wanted to do that was because the Civil War cycle is something, it was an anomaly. There was a generation that was skipped, a generational type that was skipped. And I think that it's possible that we might be going through that now. Before we get started, though, I'm sorry, did you have something to say, Grendelson?
No, I think you're.
Okay.
I think the more we the more we look at it,
the more we look at it, the more I think.
Yeah, you think you're right.
I think I could be right, but I think the next 3 or 4 years is going to determine if I'm right or not. Yeah. I think the next presidential election, 28 and maybe even 32, will decide who's the next, like how this all plays out. But I could be wrong. But I wanted, before we start on these new chapters, I wanted to touch on something from the last time where we talked about the Gray Champion. I don't know if y'all remember this or not, but we talked about the Gray Champion, and it was this. We were trying to figure out exactly what that was. A figure of an ancient man. Let's see. Saved the liberty of colonial America. Nathaniel Hawthorne wrote about it later in the 1800s. But anyway, this Gray Champion was kind of like this person from the idealist generation, who are elders during a crisis. And we were talking about who that Gray Champion could be, because we should theoretically, according to Strauss and Howe's theory, have a Gray Champion currently from the baby boomer generation. Now, I found an interview with Neil Howe talking about the gray champion in this current crisis. So we're going to start with that, if that's cool. Yeah, I know. Okay. All right. Now, before we get into this, we are talking about generational theory and culture. We are not talking about specific politics from each party or each person. This is not a political discussion. This is purely cultural and generational. So I want to make that clear before we start. So let me share my screen. And this is from a few months ago.
After this, Rachel 13G had a great.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But no, let's do that.
Okay. Here we go.
Related to your book, The Fourth Turning, is this perhaps the end of the fourth turning with POTUS as the gray champion?
Ooh. Yeah, I get asked that, and
the question is Donald Trump the gray champion of the boomer generation for this cycle? Yes.
Current book? When was this interview?
This was about maybe a month ago. Let me check.
Okay. All right.
Let me check.
So he's talking about.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. This was a different clip. This is from Trump's first term. So this is from 9 years ago.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Here we go.
We're still talking about Trump. Okay.
Yes.
Right.
You know, I guess
What is the gray champion again?
The gray champion is sort of the ultimate or climactic leader of the fourth turning, who around whom civic trust begins to grow again, right? Mm-hmm. So these are the pivotal figures in at times of fundamental outer world institutional political crisis, when we're kind of tearing down and rebuilding institutions. Keep in mind that in our fourth turning scenario, we're just barely, we're not even quite halfway through. We're kind of in the middle of this long era. So I think there's going to be quite a bit more to come. And Trump obviously takes us more toward the climax. I mean, everything about the guy is sort of increasing confrontation with the expectation that if it goes well, I'm good. And if I totally break it, I'm good. As we were just discussing. Yeah. And I think that kind of the outsider coming in who's willing to take on all outcomes is the kind of leader we're talking about. And I would hasten to add that the gray champion figure, when we think of, the Abraham Lincolns and the FDRs and so on, and these pivotal,
Would Churchill have been a gray champion?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And they're all prophet archetypes, meaning they're all born just after the late crisis. They all belong to a generation of sort of that prophet archetype. And Trump is obviously a baby boomer if there ever was one. Just everything about the guy, the huge ego and all that. And so everything, and these are what great champions typically have. They have enormous ego, enormous self-confidence. But the one thing I say is that these leaders are made, not born. It is circumstances which push them into making the right decision. It's not because they're brilliant from the beginning. People don't forget that FDR was widely considered a lightweight, coming out of school, with his Ivy League background. No one thought he would do much in his career. Obviously, he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth and had a lot of appointments, and he could, he'd become governor eventually. But he was not even the odds-on pick in 1932 to become the candidate. Obviously, everyone knew that Hoover was toast, and Al Smith and all the other guys thought they had first place. So I'm saying there was nothing ordained about FDR. He came in and he ran on a balanced budget, platform, and against Hoover, if you can imagine that. But he grew into it. He had qualities which allowed him, in a fourth turning, to go the only place where you could go, given the logic of what was unfolding. And the question is whether Donald Trump may be that kind of person. If he did, we would see some quite extraordinary things. For instance, gaining trust and gaining voter share. As hard as it may be to believe, particularly, and I've often said this, particularly if he gains that among the young.
Well, considering the 2024 election, that kind of happened, but
Yeah.
we'll see. we'll continue here.
He's losing, but he's rapidly losing trust on a daily basis. I mean, again, we're not getting political, but
Right.
in order,
I would disagree with you. Where I live, he's beloved. He's very popular where I live. Now, some places he's not.
Yeah, the news that I'm reading is not very favorable.
And that's the issue with our current journalistic landscape, is that we all get such different information. How do we even know? How do we even know? But let's listen to what Neil has to say here.
Yeah.
And that's completely unknowable right now. Again, I just to come in here, what I was saying at the very beginning, Elliot Cohen, he's a big professor at SAIS. He's one of these big high muckety-mucks of international policy, served under Condi Rice, and David Brooks, I give those two examples, believe that Trump is so horrible. There's that this is the high Whig church of kind of George Will conservatism, right? Who just absolutely detests Trump. These are the people you were talking about before.
Ivory Tower.
They expect that Trump is going to be such an absolute colossal failure that he's going to end up impeached now before the end of his first term. So I'm just saying, when the range of a plausible outcomes spreads out, that is exactly what we described as being fourth turning land.
Interesting.
When it comes, and remember too, fourth turning is public history speeds up. And remember, we sort of started here about everyone said that we've had 2 weeks of Trump and it feels like 2 years.
Okay, that's what you mean by public history speeds up. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And this is, it reminds me of that famous quote of Vladimir Ilyich Lenin, and that is, there's some decades when nothing happens, and there's some years when decades happen. And
boy, that's the truth.
And Lenin should have known. He knew whereof he spoke. I mean, given his own personal contact with history. But I think that's the thing that when we talk about turnings, is the idea that you can have decades like the 1990s, where in public life almost nothing happened. It was just kind of celebrity circus, kind of on cruise control, right? And the government sort of governed lightly, and people basically did whatever the hell they wanted to. This is when Gen Xers are coming of age. We're in a very different era now.
Yeah, I love that.
That's good.
For those of you who we'll wrap there, but for those of you who have not read The Fourth Turning, like that's how
we're getting to the fourth turning. We'll get there. But anyway, I'm sorry. Say that again.
For those of you who haven't read The Fourth Turning, get ready to be scared.
Yes, the fourth turning is going to blow your mind. I'm super excited for it. We need to burn through generations so we can get through the 13th gen and get through the fourth turning. We're going to get there. But anyway, so I thought that was interesting that to hear from the author of the book about his ideas on the Gray Champion and if it could be Trump. But if it's not, then it's got to be, like he said, somebody that's there for the moment, that's made for the moment. It could be somebody that emerges in the next couple of years, but again, it would be a boomer because it has to be from that generation. So that's why I think that Trump could be the great champion of this crisis. But yeah, where was that comment you said that you wanted to bring up from Rachel? Was this one?
That's the one.
Okay, I had a realization in millennials being civic. I think they are building the new civic structures online, such as Facebook. Facebook was sponsored by government to collect data on us. That's a good point, and they could become civic. I think that it's going to be determined in the next few years of whether or not they're going to be the civic generation or else they're going to morph into a reactive or adaptive. I mean.
And millennials are just now hitting their 40s. So
just now, right.
Yeah, so.
And I think that's what's really kind of messing up the timelines is that boomers took power earlier than they were expected to. They took it in the early 90s when they really weren't expected to take it until the 21st century. And then they held on to it longer than was expected. So they have been in power for so freaking long, like our whole entire lives almost. And so it's just going to be interesting to see how the next generations move in once the boomers go away. And the next 4 years, the boomers are going to go away. They're going to be dying. They're going to be elected out of office. They're going to be retiring. So somebody's going to step in. Is it Gen X or is it millennials? I don't know. We'll see. But that's interesting, an online civic structure. But what does that mean for the real world, the physical world? You know? But yeah. So, okay. All right. Let's go. Now, do you have a summary of chapter 7, or do you want me to do it?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Let me bring mine up here. Oh, probably should just switch it over. Okay. Probably share it as well. That might help. All right. Chapter 7. So what we're going to do, this is the beginning of part 2 of the book, where it goes through the generations, and it's going to go through all of the different generational cycles since the 1500s. That is a lot of work and a lot of reading, and I want to get on to the more modern stuff, obviously. So that's why I decided to just gloss over 7 and 8. Not that we should read it, definitely, but I wanted to get into chapter 9. So chapter 7 started it off with the colonial cycle. And basically, it covers the first full seculum or generational cycle in Anglo-American history, starting in the 16th century. It traced the founding generations of colonial America through their life cycle phases, illustrating the recurring 4-part generational cycle: a crisis, high, awakening, and unraveling. So, according to Grock's brief synopsis, the colonial cycle begins with the Puritan migration and establishment of early colonies, progressing through religious fervor, social instability, political consolidation, and intellectual shifts. It demonstrates the theory's archetypes: idealist generation, the prophets, which would be the boomers of today; the reactives, with the nomad-like, which is the 13ers of today, or Gen X; the civics, the hero-like generation, which might be the millennials; and the adaptives, artist-like, in their earliest historical forms, setting the pattern for later American cycles. So the generations during the colonial seculum were the Puritan generation. That's the idealist prophet archetype, like the boomers. Born between 1584 and 1614, they are the religious zealots who fled persecution. They dominated earlier colonial life with strict moralism and community focus during their midlife and elder phases. Then we had the Cavalier generation, born 1615 to 1647, the reactive nomad archetype. That would be like the Gen Xers, often seen as a lost or rebellious group. Isn't this crazy how this goes back to the freaking 1500s? Often seen as a lost or rebellious group, they experienced harsh judgment in their youth, leading to pragmatic, risk-taking behavior involved in events like the Salem witch trials in midlife, where guilt and realism prevailed. I thought that was very interesting.
Well, we're the first generation to be born here, so realistically, we want to live.
Exactly, yeah. And that's it. Yeah, the first generation born here is the the Gen Xers of the seculum. Isn't that crazy? Because the boomers or the parents or the elders moved over here from Europe. Yeah, they're the ones that came over. That's interesting. All right. The next generation was the glorious generation, born between 1648 and 1673. They are the civic hero archetype. Shaped by stability and institutional growth, they emphasized order, community service, and civic duty as they rose to leadership. And can you see the millennials doing something like that? Emphasize order, community service, and civic duty? No. I just don't know what that would look like. Things are so chaotic right now. I don't know how you bring order and community service and civic duty.
There was there was that movement for a while to really try to get everybody involved.
Right. Not the Peace Corps, but the Job Corps or whatever they had in the early 2000s, and like. But then
but there was there were a little bit more grassroots movements. I felt like too, but they all kind of died away by 2016. It seemed.
They did. Well, we had like Occupy Wall Street and that kind of stuff, but that'd be more of a rebellion than a emphasizing order and community service and civic duty. So I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
They were rebelling against the status quo. So in their minds, that is, that's the same. They were trying, they were kind of copying what they thought that the boomers were doing when they protested.
And that happens a lot. And the millennials are kind of doing that now. They are, doing the whole 60s boomer rebellion protesting.
I mean, that's the funny thing is, when they were doing the last protest, my kid was like, "Do you want to go protest?" And I'm like, "I did my protesting. I did it in the 80s.
Yeah. Like, I'm done.
I'm done. I'm good. I protested in the 90s. I even protested in the 2000s.
Well, I think
I'm not arrested anymore. Okay.
Yeah. Another question that I would have about all of this is the word community, because we were talking before we came on here live that when we were growing up, the focus was on what's around you, your physical community, the people that you saw every day, your community around you. But now we have what's called a global community. And like, who is the community anymore? Is it America? Is it your town? Is it the globe? Like, when it says community service, what's the community?
Well, I mean, I think in terms of the glorious generation, I think certainly it was the establishment of larger communities. It
right.
Listen, we came over here. There's like, there was 180 of us or whatever it was. And
right.
we founded a couple of towns. Roanoke gets bye-byed. They're still building their communities. And what they say is by, the shaped by stability, it means that those communities have lasted for a generation.
Right.
So they are literally building the cornerstones. They're literally building the towns.
Right. And for that time period that worked, but when it comes to the current time is my question, can millennials build community or community service? What community do they serve? What community do they build in this current time?
Yeah, as Rachel says, her friends' kids have entire friend groups online via games, and none of them have real life friends.
Yeah.
My kid is the same way, but that's just. I think that as in the Industrial Revolution, puts people out of jobs. It's just another evolution of community. It is clearly the way that community is going to go. People are going to become more and more isolated, and a lot more like Ready Player One, which
But how do you legislate that or lead that when you're trying to make laws and rules for your own area, for your country, for your state, for your town, when you're trying to how do you balance this idea that community is online, like that community, with where you physically are? Like, and how, does that make sense? Does this question make sense? Like, how do you,
I feel like I understand what you're getting at. Like, does building the community online cross over into the real world? I think is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I mean, because so for instance, when we build communities, before the internet, like I said, everything was school, church, town, geographic, your town, your state. So when you're making laws and you're building culture where you're at, that's all the physical. And so how do you, but if that's not your community anymore, if your community are people all over the world, that how do you as a government or as leaders, as civic leaders, build communities and build those types and build institutions and organizations for your physical world when everybody's living online? Does that make sense?
Have you seen Ready Player One?
I mean, because
that is like the like, if we all go into a virtual universe, that is a very salient question.
Mm-hmm. Because
we're not. I mean, we won't get there in our lifetimes. I don't think so. I think really what the millennials are building are they're building the building blocks of that kind of future world. But when they're building their communities virtually, there are rules, there are structures to these online places.
Sure.
There are hierarchies that they build up organically within. So perhaps the millennials are working towards a virtual rebuilding, because perhaps, I mean, I don't know, the future we may end up all living underground.
Right.
No, but I think if the millennials are to be this hero generation, or to be this generation that we're putting them into, that's where they're going to do their community.
Right. I just see major conflict here because, for example, right now, one of the biggest conflicts, I think, among the American citizenry or the American people is, do we care about America and want to do America things, or do we want to do everything based on the globe?
Right.
So how do you build your structures and your laws and your traditions and your culture? And do you do a sovereign nation, or do you take everybody else in consideration across the globe when you're trying? Does that make sense?
That's something, that's interesting. That's something that every sovereign country has to deal with.
Right. But before now, we weren't able to communicate and build online communities with each other. So there was a lot more division among sovereign nations and their cultures and your people. But now a lot of that stuff is falling away. Like we don't think in terms of my nation, my sovereignty, my people. It's this global thing. So I don't know which one's right, but
I would think that's very, very localized. I think there are a lot of places that are still very there are places that are very much globally oriented, and there are places that are still very isolationist.
Right.
And I don't think Japan gives two craps about what the rest of the world is doing.
Right.
As long as Japan can have a booming economy, which they're having issues with.
Right. But should America have that same approach like we always have? I mean, every country has that approach. This is our nation. This is our people. This is our community. These are our traditions. How do we protect that via laws, via rules, via all the institutions that we set up? How do we protect that based on the global community? Because there's a lot of people in our country, in our world, that say we should all just be able to go wherever we want to go and do whatever we want to do. And some people are saying, no, this is our country. We do things this way. And you can go to this country where they do things that way. So I don't know. I don't want to get too bogged down on this, but this is just something that's been going through my mind of how do you build community in an internet world. So that's kind of where my thought process is. Let's see. The Cavaliers are probably having the same arguments about where to have alliance to, since they were the first born here. That's a really great point, Rachel. Yeah. Do we build our own thing, our own America, or do we care about the countries we came from?
They were definitely. That was that was like, hey, we don't give a crap what's going on over in England. Why are we paying you money? You're not.
Yeah.
That's the whole reason we had a revolution. It was really fun.
And Kitaya, I think you might be right. It will break and rebuild happens at the end of the fourth turning. Something's going to break. Either like this whole idea of, because we've lived in the whole idea of globalism our whole lives. So, but we also grew up in an America where it was like, we love America and 4th of July and Constitution. And this is what we've built. This is what our ancestors built. This is something to be proud of. But all of a sudden that has changed in the last few years. And so it's a weird, I don't know. It's just something that I've noticed. And so, but I think that there's going to be some kind of a break that happens. Either Americanism is going to triumph or globalism is going to triumph in our leadership. Either we're going to work for America and what America wants to do, or we're going to work for being part of the global community.
The amazing thing is going to be that even no matter what happens, it's cyclic and it'll come back around in 80 or 90 years, and we'll. There have been other times in the past when patriotism and America First has really, been at the forefront. And then there have been times when, patriotism is at an all-time low, and you can't, and you have drafts and people don't want to go and stuff like that. So, we've had those within our lifetime. So that's, I think, one of the important things to remember is the status quo is always going to be changing, and it's not it's always going to, and because we have a cyclic lifestyle, our society is cyclic. It's not just this. Everything is cyclic.
Right. All
Sorry,
right.
reading.
No worries. Okay, let's keep going. The Enlightenment generation, born 1674 to 1700, they were the adaptive artists like the current Zennials, or not Zennials, the current Gen Z. More sensitive and cooperative, they adapted to emerging rationalism and intellectual currents, bridging towards the next cycle. This colonial cycle included a Puritan awakening with spiritual intensity, periods of religious intolerance and crisis, the Glorious Revolution, and a shift towards Enlightenment values. Overall, it shows how generational interplay drove colonial society's evolution from religious theocracy to more secular, rational foundations. So that would be the summary for Chapter 7. Do you have anything you want to add?
Nah, just that you can see where they came from and where they're trying to go to.
Yeah. This is a good first base of the or ground level of what their theory is.
Yeah, and like their examples for people are like you kind of need to know a little bit more about history as to understand what their examples are. But yeah, it's a good, real good basis.
Dan says, I think the global versus national debate takes second place at best to the will you let me live my life my way here debate. Possibly. But what do you mean? Like, did he mean like American citizens or everyone? Because, I mean, we have a way of life. And then, but if everybody around the globe comes here, is that what they're asking? Will you let me live my life my way here? Is that what you're asking? Because I wouldn't go to China and be like, I need an American enclave here in China to everybody speak English and feed me cheeseburgers and, watch Disney movies. Like, I wouldn't go to another country and push what I like and what I want to do onto their culture and their country. And I don't think that America or any other country should expect people to do that. And that's the way it feels to me. So that's just my little 2 cents. Maybe humanity versus AI will replace patriotism. That could be. He's not wrong.
AI still doesn't think.
No, it doesn't. It gets input from the.
It just spits out what it's been programmed with. So we don't even have true AI yet. We have language learning models.
Yeah, language learning models. This AI thing is going to be interesting to see how that plays out. All right, next chapter, the Revolutionary Cycle, Chapter 8. This chapter examines the Seculum from 1701 to 1791, so basically the 1700s, focusing on the lead up to and aftermath of the American Revolution. It applies the generational theory to the era of the Founding Fathers, highlighting how generational roles fueled the crisis of independence and the establishment of the new republic. The revolutionary cycle features generations that experience spiritual revival, imperial conflict, revolutionary crisis, and post-war compromise. It culminates in the American Revolution as a defining crisis turning where civic-minded generations rebuilt institutions after upheaval. Keeble.
Rebuilt.
Yeah, rebuilt. Pretty much.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How about built?
So in this Seculum, we have the Awakening generation, born 1701 to 1723. They are the idealist prophet types, would be similar to boomers today. Spiritual leaders of the Great Awakening. They challenged authority with moral and religious fervor in their youth and rising adulthood. The Liberty generation, the reactive nomad, that would be the Gen Xers of the Seculum. Born 1724 to 1741, they were pragmatic and liberty-focused. They endured hardships like the French and Indian War, emerging skeptical and independent-minded. Boy, Gen X has been all throughout history, I'm telling you. We've been popping up everywhere. Republican generation would be the civic hero archetype from 1742 to 1766, the core revolutionary fighters and nation builders, figures like George Washington. They emphasize Republican virtue, discipline, and collective action during the Revolution crisis. Compromiser generation, the adaptive artist archetype, which would be the Gen Zers. 1767 to 1791. More flexible and conciliatory, they navigated post-revolution compromises such as in the constitutional era and early republic stabilization. The cycle includes the Great Awakening, which is a spiritual awakening, colonial unrest and wars in their different phases, the American Revolution as the crisis in a period of institution building and compromise. It illustrates how generational dynamics, idealism sparking change, reactives pushing boundaries, heroes executing, and adaptives refining produced the birth of the United States as a new civic order. There's chapter 8. There you have it, and there you are. All right.
That Republican generation, and you compare the Republican generation to the millennials, and you're like, you're supposed to be the same type. I mean, we're talking. I mean, it's not just Washington. It's Adams. It's Jefferson. It's Hamilton.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody except Ben Franklin.
Right? Yeah, Ben Franklin was the only elder of the group.
Yeah, it's that whole group of people is. They are like the example of the civic hero archetype.
Right.
Who are the civic heroes. And
they did not emerge after the Civil War. They only emerged after the Revolutionary. So that will be the question of the millennials in this crisis. Will they emerge as the civic leaders post-crisis, or will they become a adaptive type? We'll get there. Let's get to this. Let's get to the next chapter, chapter 9. Let me bring it up. This is exciting. Oh, hold on. Let me get to the book here.
Second Great Awakening, pretty different than the first. Yeah, well, and the third Great Awakening is going to be really different than the second. The third Great Awakening, I hate to tell you, is going to be some sort of polyglot, where everybody's going to, there's going to be a million different religions out there, and everybody's going to have their own personal one. And that's
right. Oh, God.
Yeah, it's going to be like, I'm my own God.
Right. Yeah, that's not good. That's going to cause a lot of problems.
Thank God the third awakening is not going to happen until we're on our deathbeds.
Yeah.
I'll just be walking back going, I'm waiting for the 300th centennial.
Oh, okay. Civil War cycle. Let's see what I wrote down here. Okay. I didn't write down very much in my papers. I think I wrote it in the actual book. I'm so terrible at this. I'm so hard on books because I'm constantly highlighting and note taking.
I'm just hard on books because I bring them everywhere.
Yeah.
I have a copy of the Raymond Carver short story book that's been sitting in my car for like 3 years. I've had the two together, and I'm almost finished with it. And by the way, I've already read it. I mean, this is a second reread.
Right. Okay. Let's get to page 191. Boom. Let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger. Ooh. Okay, we're going to go through the different generations in the Civil War cycle to see what we got going on there. I don't know if y'all can read this. Maybe make it a little bit bigger. That'll look better. There we go. That's a little bit better.
The funny thing is I'd been doing all that research on the Revolutionary War, and I could I was starting to see the freaking Civil War coming when they
were. It's amazing though, the patterns that they have put out in this book. It's crazy. It's truly incredible.
And I didn't even realize how Washington and Jefferson would not have gotten along.
Right.
Crazy.
Well, and people don't. I don't think it's emphasized enough in our history books and our history classes how much conflict there was during the Revolutionary period among Americans that were here. Mm-hmm. We went through the Articles of Confederation and things like that before we got to the Constitution, and there was a big war amongst all of our founding fathers over centralized power, the power of a monarch or a president versus states' rights and all that. There was huge disagreements. So,
and we're still
that's mentioned that
we're still experiencing them today.
All right, so let's go through that. Let's get to the generations that were part of the Civil War cycle. First up, we have Lincoln's transcendental generation, the idealists, who were between the ages of 40 to 69 when this cycle began. This would be what the boomers are today. So the transcendental generation had in their 20s provided the original core of the 1830s era evangelical and abolitionist movements. Ever since the extremism of William Lloyd Garrison, the stridency of young plantation owners, and the memory of Nat Turner's violent slave rebellion had worked to snuff out any compromise or hope of peacefully weaning the South from slavery. Now in their 50s, the generation of Massachusetts Black Republicans and South Carolina fire eaters was fully prepared to shed younger blood to attain what they knew was right. Preaching from pulpits and railing from Congress, the peers of John Brown, Harriet Moses Tubman, Julia Ward Howe, Alexander Stephens, and Robert E. Lee looked to war for what New Englanders heralded as the glory of the coming of the Lord, and Virginians the baptism of blood for their newborn Confederacy. The hand of God was felt in Richmond no less than in Washington, and over the next 4 years, these two capitals of his truth would be bisected by 100-mile scar of mud and blood all their lives. Transcendentals were a generation others feared but followed until their apocalypse ended. In their old age, as they watched Reconstruction disintegrate and other principled causes fall into scorn, many of them would look back on Bull Run as the moment their ideals began self-destructing. Ooh.
Bull Run was bloodshed that had never been seen in ever. Not even during the Revolutionary War, the bloodshed was happening.
Yeah, I guess I should. Yeah, they kind of go into Bull Run a little bit at the very beginning of the chapter. I guess I should have skipped over that, but
No.
but yeah. So Lincoln's transcendental generation. So that's where they were during the Civil War cycle. That's where the boomers were. That's who the boomers were back then. And I think there's a lot of symmetry to that now in the boomers in current day. This whole idea that they're willing to send kids to die for what they believe is right, and they've been doing it our whole lives. they've been sending soldiers all over the world our whole lives.
You'd think they would have learned when they got sent to that.
I know.
They didn't want to go. That's the one thing about boomers, and we haven't really touched on it, but the hypocritical nature of the baby boomer is. Yeah. It's like almost it's a living oxymoron. They are living oxymorons. That's what I think it is.
Because you look at, it's just weird because all of the hippie revolutionaries of the 60s became the state. They became the leaders. They became the man. They wanted to damn the man in the 60s, but then they became the man in the 90s. And it's like, how does that work? It's really, really weird.
Cocaine and money.
Yeah.
Cocaine and money. Both of those things.
Yeah, a lot of it. And,
having children later, I think.
Yeah. And all the divorce, all of the neglect of their children, and all of the the yuppies of the 80s, they all made their money, and instead of passing on used to parents or people would create businesses in their family and they would pass them on to their kids and create that wealth. But the boomers were like, nah, we're just going to sell it to the biggest corporation and cash out and screw our kids.
What about houses? Both sets of my grandparents had houses. Neither one of my parents inherited their house. My uncle inherited one of the grandmother's house, but he sold it. And, that's just, we don't have that anymore.
Yeah. From rebel to autocrat is something you see with all profit gens. And I think that's a good point, Dan, as we go through these next generations over the next couple of weeks. Rebel to autocrat is kind of the thing, which is wild. but it happens.
I mean, if we can like track that and really, pinpoint why that is, maybe we can. Ah, geez, that is great. That is true too.
It is wild.
Yeah.
Reverse mortgage. Okay, let's go to the Gilded generation.
Oh,
So
yeah.
this would be Gen X's analogous counterpart in the Civil War cycle.
Yeah, the young bud.
Yeah, the Gilded generation, they were the reactives. The difference was they were in rising adulthood during the Civil War crisis and not in middle age. So because the Civil War cycle came earlier and faster than the previous two had. So that messed up a lot of the age groups and the generations. It came faster and happened faster.
I wonder if that had something to do with the massive population growth
It might have.
in the 1800s. Because, there was that big manifest destiny thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because when you're convinced you're right, it becomes easy to tell people what to do. Boy, that's the truth.
That's called charisma, right? I don't know. I don't have any.
Well, yeah. All right. Gilded generation. This is Stonewall Jackson's generation. These are the Xers of the Civil War. All right. Comprised the ghastly wretches Congressman Riddle saw scrambling away across Bull Run Creek. They had signed up for what they had expected to be a quick adventure. Hold on. I got a cough.
Here, you want to? I'll keep going.
Woo! Okay. They had signed up for what they had expected to be a quick adventure with maybe a little glory and profit mixed in, not much different from the California gold fields to which many had rushed as teenagers. Most expected that their sheer energy and daring do, always mystify, mislead, and surprise the enemy, advised Jackson, would end the war quickly and let them get on with life's practical challenges. Whew. For Gilded Whites, any resolution at all to the thundering hatred between elder abolitionists and elder Southerns would at least allow them to settle the western frontier. For Gilded Blacks, including the slave... Whoa, what was that?
That was me, sorry.
Okay. For Gilded Blacks, including the slaves who began fleeing northward on the Underground Railroad, Bull Run marked a necessary first step, albeit a tactical setback, towards flesh and blood freedom. But as the war settled into its meaner later years, the jaunty opinion of this generation would sour. The scrappy adventurers whom Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr. saw as touched with fire in their youth would later turn bitterly cynical about passionate crusades. The same 25-year-olds who had shrieked or heard the rebel yell would much later in their 60s whoa, what's going on?
Sorry.
Okay. The same 25-year-olds who had shrieked or heard the rebel yell would much later in their 60s remember Bull Run and Antietam, Gettysburg, and Atlanta and warn the young against the horrors of war. Few would listen. Interesting. So, the extras of the time, they were on board with the Civil War at first, thinking that it would go quick. And then it didn't. And so they soured on it.
And that was on both sides, not just, one side or the other. It was like, oh, wait a second. This might not have been a good idea.
I immediately regret this decision. It's kind of a thing.
Run away.
You thought you'd come here to hear about Ferris Bueller. That is not this. I talk about 80s TV shows and movies nonstop on this channel. Tuesday Night Book Club is where we talk about books, and Generations is the book we're talking about. All right. Okay.
Bueller is the great champion.
Huh?
Maybe Ferris Bueller is the great
champion.
It
Could be. Life comes at you fast. Pause and think about our kids in harm's way tonight, please. Huh?
Iran.
Okay. All right.
We're referring to what's going on overseas.
Oh, I have a nephew that's part of the Air Force. I understand. And they're always in my heart and my thoughts and my prayers. All right.
PBS had a great series called The Civil War that Ken Burns
Ken
did.
Burns did. That was pretty good. And then you had the 80s miniseries, The North and South and the Blue and the Gray and all that.
Oh, and there's a Gettysburg one too.
Oh yeah.
That's got. There's lots of. If you want to delve into the Civil War, I don't know. Like in the '60s, something happened. Like the Civil War got the cultural zeitgeist again, and like there was all sorts of like books and movies and TV shows about the Civil War. I wonder. Like we have.
I'm not 100% sure. Like I said, I know there was all those 80s miniseries about it. The Civil War was always a big part of our history classes and history books.
Yeah, it was a thing.
Civil War, World War II.
In the '60s, my dad would talk about it. It was like around the 100th anniversary because weirdly enough, that was when the last Civil War veterans were dying. It was around that.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah, civil rights probably brought it back in discussion. Yeah, the 100th anniversary of it. So I like this comment from Rachel. I felt bad for the Gilded Age. They were too young to make decisions, but paid the price. And I think that's a good way to put it. And I think maybe Gen X kind of fits into that currently. We were too young to make the decisions that were made for the world that we lived in, but we've paid the price for it because we haven't been able to have the economic success of our parents. We've been, they have kind of sacrificed the other generations for their own happiness. It feels like the boomers, but maybe that's a bad.
No, I think that's a really good analogy. I feel like the boomers were, as a generation, were just like this amorphous blob that just wanted to eat up the other generation.
Yeah. They didn't care about us, that's for sure.
I mean, but if you look at, obviously, if we look at the cycles, look at the other two generations that we've already seen that were in the same cohort paradigm.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't care about their children either. So
yeah, it's weird.
I did do some of the reading on that first one, and the first generation of kids to be born in America. They were just like, just run around, be free. Who cares? We'll just have another one. We're gonna have one anyway because she's already pregnant.
Yeah, and before the 20th century, there was no concept of teenagers. So you had kids and you had adults, and there was infant mortality was very different back then, and so like the whole idea of kids, you might birth 7, 8, or 9 of them, but only half of them live, and then they were just part of your family and your farm or whatever. Like it was just the way kids were looked at before the 20th century, where it's very different than modern day. How we look at kids. So I don't know why I even brought that up, but I think that's something to keep in mind when we're looking at the different generations before the 20th century.
Yeah, because you basically introduce a whole new group of a whole new cohort of ages, that didn't have any real power before.
Right.
And it wasn't until the 20th century that the teenage cohort actually had any spending power whatsoever.
Right.
And that's really where, as they started marketing to that group, we have the rise of our current, consumerist culture.
Right. Absolutely.
But that's good.
Oh, gotcha. Your Navy. Well, thank you for your service. I super appreciate it. Yeah, my boy is on Whitman Air Force Base. He works in all the planes, so he's an airplane mechanic. Air Force. Whoop whoop. So all those boys and girls are in my thoughts and prayers constantly. And putting your life on the line for our country is, I salute you. That is an amazing thing to do. So thank you very much for your service. I appreciate it.
Agreed.
All right. The third generation of the Civil War cycle was Wilson's progressive generation. They were the kids of the time. So adaptive, age 2 to 18. The news of Bull Run. Well, hold on. Let me put the screen up on it so we see it. The news of Bull Run signaled the beginning of a family trauma that was destined to pass over their childhood like a dark and cruel cloud. They would not see daylight again until 1865, when Abraham Lincoln's funeral train journeyed from Washington through New York to Illinois. The black creped cortege would be seen by an astonishing 7 million Americans, nearly 1/5 the population of the reunited nation. Witnessing the last act, the youngest and this most fatherless of American generations would sit hoisted on a mother's shoulder and he'll hear elders talk of the sufferings they had endured to provide children with a better future. The eldest would help out in the war effort. Teenage Thomas Edison stringing telegraph wires. Sergeant William McKinley serving hot meals to troops at Antietam. Later, they would pass from a smothered youth to a conformist young adulthood, concentrating on smallish tasks in a society where great things were built or said by others. Emancipated young black progressives like Booker T. Washington would reach midlife, disinclined to provoke a white society that over the 4 bloody years commencing with Bull Run had shown its capacity for organized butchery. Wow, that is quite the description of what kids of the Civil War had to grow up with. My goodness. That is crazy. And I think that you could really look at Gen Zers or maybe even Gen Alpha, like I think probably Gen Z though. Gen Z, because my boy is 19, almost 20. And actually, is he 20? What is this? 2026? He did just turn 20. Holy crap. I'm so bad. But his whole life, like, you know, he was 14 and in 8th grade going into high school when COVID happened and he got pulled out of the society and the world. And I think that COVID and all of that might have the same or similar impact on the younger generation that the Civil War had on this generation. I don't know. What do you think?
I 100% agree with you. My child is 19 years old and was in middle school, transitioning to high school. High school happened, like his first year of high school was right in the middle of COVID.
Yeah.
And you know, he never finished because he was having a hard time anyway in school. So he just never finished school. So now I need to get him to he needs to get his GED. And
yeah.
You know.
I homeschooled mine. I had him finish up at home but we did an online course where like online through a school district. So we were able to get the graduation that way.
We did that too. And that didn't work at the time either for them. So
understood. It was a tough time.
They were still recovering from my separation with my wife. So
gotcha.
Yeah, so it's been really rough on the kids. The millennials are doing a good job of trying to keep them centered.
Yeah,
they're losing that battle, and we are all losing that battle because the Gen Zers are definitely on the cusp of losing a generation.
Yeah. I think this is an interesting point from Dan. Neil puts the last millennial as born somewhere between 2006 and 2009. We have gone on this Pew Research. Pew Research has decided that they're going to decide all of the generations, and it infuriates me because it's all based on data, birth rates, and how they decide their generations. But I think that we've cut off millennials too short, 96. This is a good discussion on what really defines a millennial and what defines a Gen Zer. I think we've got it a little off from the current definitions. What do you think?
I'm of the opinion that the generations are shaped by more or less the events that they've experienced, rather than birth rates or localization. So and the major events seem to come at the same 20-year interval. So because the generation of the baby boomers started with a specific event, and we know the generations are about 20 years apart, we can extrapolate those major events. So for me, you are a baby boomer if you can remember Kennedy being alive.
Right.
If you can't, you are a Gen X, or you could be on the cusp. but you are a Gen X. If you were born, if you can remember President Reagan being inaugurated, you are Gen X. If
Right.
you can't, you are a millennial. You
Mhm.
know, you could move it up a couple of years if you want to. If you want to
Right.
go space shuttle route, but for me, it's the Reagan era, because
Mhm.
70s ending was a major deal, bigger
Right.
than the 60s ending.
Absolutely. It was a huge deal.
It was,
And
that turning of the decade was so much bigger than the 80s going to the 90s too.
Right.
The 90s going to the 2000s was way bigger.
Right. But using that theory, I would argue that millennials would probably go through 9/11.
Right. Millennials go to 9/11.
Right. But
And
see, but Pew Research has cut them off at 1996.
that's way too early.
It's way too early.
It's way too early because it doesn't make sense. It just
No.
it doesn't make sense. Nothing happened in 1996 that altered anything.
Right.
Nothing happened in 1996.
Maybe the emergence of the internet to the,
Nah, the internet was moving up. Windows 95. I mean, that's the biggest.
Yeah, but it wasn't until 90s. I started college in 1996 and got my first college email in 1997. And companies didn't have websites until 96 or 97. Yes, the internet was around in the early 90s, but I'm talking about it making its cultural mark.
I don't know. I have a different bias because I was involved in the early.
Right.
Right. My company did have a web presence in 93.
But most people did not have connection with the internet until the late 90s or early 2000s. The masses. So early adapters, I'm not really talking about, but that was the only thing that would delineate. But then again, I think it makes more sense to cut it off at 9/11. If you remember 9/11, you're a millennial. If you don't remember 9/11, you're a Gen Zer.
Yeah, and I think that makes much more sense. My kid is definitely a Gen Zer, born in 2006, but my kid is also a core Gen Zer, not an early Gen Zer. There's definitely, as we've discovered, there seems to be 3 different phases of each generation.
Right.
You have your early, your core, and your late, and each generation cohort, your early is definitely different than your late.
Right.
And your cores are somewhere in between. Your earlies are more like the previous generation, and so on.
Right.
And you have your cuspers who are born in the areas surrounding each side.
Right.
So there's always going to. That's the thing. There's always going to be exceptions to the rules.
Right.
But I still think that the event type thing, and again and we had another event.
Right.
So that we have had another event now that was almost 20 years in between.
Exactly.
The next generation of kids, Gen Alpha, does not remember life before COVID.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, it works so perfectly.
If they remember COVID, even if the smallest, I remember having to get a shot. Okay, you are a Gen Z.
Right.
You're not Gen Alpha yet.
Right.
The Gen Alphas aren't even. They're not even really.
They're babies at this point, and I think they've gotten it all wrong calling Gen Alpha apparently Gen Alpha is 10, the oldest are 10, 11 years old now.
No,
and I just completely disagree with it because what Pew Research did is they started Gen Z in 1996 and they cut it off at around 2012.
No, the oldest Gen Zers are graduating college.
I know,
or have graduated. The oldest Gen Zers are. Like I said, I think my kid is core, and that's 2006. The oldest Gen Zers are 99,
right,
at the earliest.
At the absolute earliest. So that's why I get so mad at Pew Research, and people are always on my page being like, Gen X is 1965 to 1980, and it's like Pew Research has done some serious damage on this whole subject because it's like. No, that's not how you define generations.
No, there are some 61ers who are definitely Gen X.
And there are 1982ers that are Gen X and not millennials,
but at the same time, there are 80s that are millennials.
Right.
Because that's just.
Yeah, I know.
That's why that gray area, that cusper.
Right.
That's why I like it as the memory thing, because it is more of a memory thing.
Yep. 81's Gen X. all day, every day. Bat ZXO, Bats
Hey,
XO. Yeah, you are a Gen X on this channel all day, every
I
day.
was 81. I was in elementary school.
Yeah. So, so
I'm Gen
anyways,
X, so if I'm Gen X and I was in 6th grade, you're definitely Gen X.
yeah. So I this has become such a big thing for me. Is like I want to battle Pew Research so bad. Like I hate you people. All right, I had this highlighted on the bottom of page 192. Let's see. The Civil War cycle had its origin when the failed presidential bid of Andrew Jackson in 1824 fired a fresh mood of radicalism among coming-of-age transcendentals, an accelerating enthusiasm over spiritual conversion, social reform, manifest destiny, abolitionism, and utopian communalism. This cycle extended through the pitched battles of the Civil War and came to an inglorious end with the conformism and spiritual decline of the Gilded Age of the 1870s and 1880s. Climaxing in tragedy, the cycle failed to produce a civic-type generation. After swiftly elbowing aside transcendental leadership in the years following the war, the reactive Gilded transformed in midlife from a recessive to a dominant generation, assuming some of the traits, secularism, conformism, lengthy political tenure, and an indulgent style of child nurture associated with, it stops. Associated with the civic type at the phase of life, but without the hubris of crisis era success. I'm going to do that one more time and read it from my book. After swiftly elbowing aside transcendental leadership in the years following the war, the reactive Gilded, which would be Gen X in today's terms, transformed in midlife from a recessive to a dominant generation, assuming some of the traits, secularism, conformism, lengthy political tenure, and an indulgent style of child nature associated with the civic type at that phase of life, but without the hubris of crisis era success. Though first wave progressives began life with a nurture similar to that of a civic childhood, the trauma of war caused this generation to come of age smothered instead of empowered. Therefore, its awkward connection with history and its other directed peer personality would follow the pattern of an adaptive type. So the question is, will Gen X transform in midlife from a recessive to a dominant generation and assume some of the traits associated with the civic type of that phase of life? Will Gen X do that? That's the question.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I would hope so. I would love to be completely optimistic and say that our current Gen X leadership would be able to step up a la this Gilded generation. The fact is, we are never going to do that.
You don't think so?
We can't get our shit together. And we don't care. That is we really don't care. And what I think is actually going to happen is we know that we're the recessive generation. I think that the millennials are going to transform from the hero type to the next generation, and they're going to absorb that, and that's how we're going to lose.
Right. Well, I think so too.
I think Gen Alpha is then going to take up the next whatever type it is, which I can't remember.
But it already but there has to be some kind of leadership emerge. If there has to be some kind of a dominant generation that emerges, because
I think it's going to be
Gen Alpha. Well, that's a long time away. I'm talking about in the next 5 to 7 years.
I meant Gen Z.
Okay, you think it's Gen Z?
Yeah, I do.
Really?
I think it's going to be Gen Z because I think. Yeah, I do because I think the millennial, like I said, I don't think we don't Gen X just doesn't have it in it. Millennials are.
I disagree. I disagree 100%.
Well, I hope you're right. I would love to hear your argument because I want to be wrong.
Okay.
I want to be wrong.
I hope I'm right, but here's where I look at it. Okay.
Yeah, I want to know.
Okay.
Yeah, Gen X needs to form Voltron.
I love it. Okay. The way I look at it is, okay, we could become, I mean, we're going to be in power in the next 4 years, Gen X is. Right now, every major company in the world is ran by a Gen Xer. Every major company, from Tesla to Google to Instagram to all of that. Like, well, hey, Zuckerberg's a millennial, so I take it back, Instagram. But Gen X runs every major company in the world right now, and Gen X is the entirety of the current presidential cabinet, sans 2 people. We are a recessive generation, but we're also positioned right now to emerge as the next leaders. Now, whether or not we become the hero types or not remains to be seen, but we're gonna be in charge. I don't see. So the question is, will we become the heroes or will we stay recessive? I think that a lot of Gen Xers don't care, and a lot of Gen Xers will not be in on whatever. But there are a lot of Gen Xers that are in very powerful positions, and they're going to keep being that over the next 10 or 20 years.
Well, I mean, like I said, I hope you're right. And
yeah, I just don't know what millennials would.
I don't know who that Gen X is going to be. Though.
Right, but then then the question is, who's the leadership over the next 10 to 20 years before Gen Z, is in their third, and Gen Zs are teenagers right now in their 20s. So like, yeah, you can't, I mean, who's going to fill that vacuum between now and Gen Z? So, I mean, it's just, well, I think our generation is a little under, the expectations are low for us. But we got a smart generation. Our generation are the ones that really moved the internet and all this stuff into where it is now. We're the ones that are creating the AI and all that stuff for the future. Mm-hmm. I know, good or bad, we're the ones that created all the great entertainment in the 90s and 2000s, and I really would like to see us get back into creating some great entertainment. And I don't know. I think that we're in a good position to do some good things, but we could totally blow it as well.
I hope not. We need a win.
Yeah, but you're right. But Utai is right. The leadership is whether that'll be the hero gen is the question, and that is the question, and that's what we're going to find out the next 4 to 6 years. Is who is the hero? Is it us? Is it millennials? Is it Gen Z?
I mean, yeah, each gen will get to be leadership, but the question is for how long? Because let's face it, the boomers have been in power now for way too long.
Yeah, they're at 40, 45 years of power right now since President Clinton was elected in 92. Or 35 years of power, I should say. But like it's insane. It's insane how long they've been in power. Almost 2 full generations. So, it's crazy. You just like thinking that business leaders could be the heroes? Really? I think business leaders, well, in the current world of corporations and mass conglomerates, I would agree with you. But I always think of business leaders as like the people in my town, the people in my city, the people in my state. Not as it's like all of the people that own the businesses where I'm at and stuff like that. A lot of good is done by business leaders. They provide jobs. They provide, a lot of great things in towns, and a lot of leadership. But yeah, that's changed a lot in the last few years. I'm not big fans of global corporations. So that makes sense. Let's see. You're not getting that Gen X is the grassroots get it done generation. We not be inclined to be in typical power positions. We're making a difference where it counts, right in the streets. And that could be it too. These next 4 to 6 years are going to be wild. Just wild.
18 months is going to be crazy.
The next 18 months are going to be wild. I know. I know.
Let's see if we even have midterms, okay?
Thank you, Nelly. I'm actually a business person. I guess I'm just too jaded. I understand that. And that's, and that's another thing, there's, the world has changed a lot but the same way that business is demonized, I've always been a small government person, so I look at the same way as the government. But there's good in both, public and private sector. That's what what makes our country a great is what used to it had a lot of balance between business and government. There wasn't a lot of government overreach, but there was a lot of good private trade and wealth building. So, anyways,
Business used to be a little bit different too.
yeah, business has definitely changed. And it makes me sad.
The globalization of ethics.
Yeah, that's the other thing. The globalization of everything from ethics to businesses to communities to everything is just, can we survive a global community, a global economy, a global anything? Yeah, less top down. I like grassroots. I like local communities. Oh, okay.
The scary thing is that we are moving away from smaller communities and more towards larger and larger.
Well, we got global. It's weird because we got global communities, but we're more isolated from each other than ever.
Well, no,
it's so bizarre.
Yeah, that's what's going to end up happening is we're all going to end up. We're physically going to end up clustered in these massive city states, but that we're all going to be so close together that we're just going to require living in our own little space and
right,
whatever that looks at. I know you're getting a tiny home, but that's like the beginning of kind of where we're going.
Yeah. I'm getting a tiny home to build a studio inside.
No, and listen, I love tiny homes. Okay,
yeah.
I love the concept.
They're cool.
I live in one myself. I would love to have one. I think they're awesome. I especially like the ones you can take on the road. I watch a lot of those YouTube videos, so I'm not just tiny homes. I'm just saying that type of movement, because there are people like the homeless community in our state. They're making these small enclosures so people have at least something. And that's gonna, I think, become more and more prevalent.
I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens to housing once all the boomers die. Like, where are all their houses going? Who are they going to? Their children, their grandchildren, the state.
They're all going to the bank.
Yeah.
They're being bought by corporations.
Right.
They're being turned into Airbnbs.
Right.
They start to with their children.
Chick Jack Jake, you're my neighbor.
Wow.
You're outside STL County. I'm a couple counties away. I'm in St. Francis. So Jefferson, there's STL, Jefferson, and St. Francis. So we're not too far away from each other. All right. Let's I wanted to real quick. I wanted to go over the Gilded Generation a little bit, if you're all right with that.
Yeah.
And then let's see, what else did I have? And then maybe a little bit about the progressive. And then we will call it a night. Let's see here. This is very interesting, though. Where's my Gilded? Because I feel like I was going to go into the Transcendentals, the baby boomers, but I feel like we talk about them so damn much.
We know what they did.
Right.
You know what they did. They fought.
You know what they
did.
Bad. We get it.
It was bad. They had brother kill brother.
Yeah. So one thing I noticed, I think I said this earlier, the crisis era was shorter than our current crisis era. So that's something to remember when we're talking about the Civil War cycle. And the awakening during childhood was also shorter. So we lived through, our childhood was a spiritual awakening with the 60s and into the 70s with the boomers and the civil rights and all that good stuff. That was considered
free
an
love,
area. Free love, yeah, and into the 70s, the me generation of the 70s. So our the awakening that we lived through was much longer than the awakening that the Gilded went through in their childhood. To 206 is the page I'm going to go to here. Let's see. I'm not going to find it. I'm trying to go through one book and then to the other. Here we go. This is what I had highlighted in my book. The Gilded lived perhaps the most luckless life cycle in American history. How much do you love that? Here, let me make it a little bit bigger.
I love that.
They
suck.
Yeah. Well, sucks to be you. The Gilded lived through perhaps the most luckless lifestyle in American history. First waivers grew up too late to share the euphoria of the transcendental awakening, but in time to fill its damage as children. 2 decades later, last waivers grew up just in time to maximize their risk of death and maiming in the Civil War. They all came of age in an era of economic swings, flood tide immigration, and a darkening national mood. Yay!
It sucks to be you.
Yeah.
And yet you're the Gilded generation.
Yeah. So if you think that Gen X had it bad, all you got to do is just read about the Gilded and you'll feel better about yourself. Here's what else I had highlighted.
I like the Mark Twain. You want to know who the Gilded generation is?
Oh, yeah, we're going to go
Tom
through
Sawyer
this.
and Becky and Huck Finn. That's the Gilded generation.
Gilded generation is Tom Sawyer, Becky Thatcher, and Huck Finn. That is correct. And we're going to go through some of the sample members of the generation here in a second. On page 207, inheriting the physical and emotional wreckage left behind by their elders, the Gilded entered midlife and reassembled the pieces their own way. They muscled into political power, repudiated their elders' high-flown dreams, rolled up their sleeves, and launched a dynamo of no-holds-barred economic progress to match their pragmatic mood. And that's where I think Gen X is going in the next 4 to 6 years.
I hope so. I hope so. I do hope so. Maybe when we're older, we are a lot crankier. But I mean, Lorraine, we're getting up there too. Don't forget.
Yep.
I mean, the oldest ones of us are 60 now, and yours are in there. I'm 55. You're almost 50. I mean, we're getting,
we're getting there.
Get there. We gotta if we're gonna do something, it's gotta be soon.
And this is our time. This is our time to shine.
Well, maybe it's this is it. When the grassroots book clubs across the nation are going to help us all rise up and reclaim our generational identity and give us power amongst our peers, and we're going to make everything better.
We are the last ones to remember the before times. If we don't do it, no one will. I mean, we are the last ones to remember the before times. We're the ones that have to rebuild. We have to. But I like this from Nicody. I always said Gen X ended in 81 because if millennials are born in 82, they turn 18 in 2000 and thereby came of age then. That's exactly why William Strauss and Neil Howe named them the millennials and started them in 82. You are absolutely spot on.
Yep.
Yep.
That is the reason.
Maybe younger Xers. I'm old Xers, and I just want a small, quiet place in the world. But you go on. Honestly, Nicody. Okay, I will amend my statement. It's not the Gen Xers. It's the Zennials. The Zennials are the ones that are going to do this. The late 70s, early 80s babies. That's the group. We're our own special group, not to exclude everybody else. But I think that mirrors the mood because, with your pessimism and my optimism, you're a core Gen Xer. I'm a Zennial, so it kind of shows you the difference in how we look at things.
We need an early Gen Xer on here now.
We do.
We can have a left, right, and center style show. Because they're Generation Jones. They have their own name too.
Yeah, Jones has their own thing.
Yeah, for all of you early Gen Xers who wait, how many early Gen Xers are here tonight? 3 of them?
Yep. See, I think I think this is actually an interesting thing to think about.
Post Star Wars kids, you don't know the world before Star Wars, and they're Therefore, therefore, your whole world has been bright and rosy and
Exactly.
great science fiction since 1977. You
Yep.
don't know the world where you had to sit there and watch really crappy shit like Space 1999 and.
So here, the Zennial, which is kind of a millennial as well. Yes, it's the late 70s, early 80s babies. It's the youngest Gen Xers and oldest millennials. Maybe the Zennials will emerge as the hero.
Okay, I'm good with that. People Gen X were like, yeah, go for it. We don't
See? And that's my difference between a Gen Xer, like a core Gen Xer, and a Zennial. It's amazing how... Isn't that crazy? It's kind of cool though. The Zennial Book Club revolution. So, anyways, I love that. I'm getting some people to agree with me. Yay! Okay. One more little spot here, then we're going to go through the people that were part of the Gilded. Where did I have what? Okay, here's what I had highlighted in my book. By most indicators, wealth, higher education, and lifespan, the Gilded fared worse at each phase of life than their next elders or next juniors. A sacrificial one-generation backstep in the chain of progress. No wonder they behaved all their lives like survivalists. Taking a cue from their laissez-faire guru, William Graham Sumner, they learned to root, hog, or die.
Sound familiar?
Yeah. Jesus Christ. It's just people that don't like the Strauss and Howe theory, I just want to punch them in the face. Because it's like, have you read it? Like, this is insane. This is just insane. It's just crazy. Yep, older Gen Xers will block and we'll run the ball. That's right. You know it. Oh, I might have a video in the, topic here. So that way I don't have to worry about NBC Universal blocking my videos for copyright with Punky Brewster clips if I just talk about stuff like this. Oh, man.
I like what Nakoti 82 says here.
Here?
Yeah.
I'm first year Gen X and we stride but are beat down and tired. You still have some energy left. Get to 60 and we'll see how you feel. And that's a great point. I guess that makes me a Bexer with all those blended gens.
No, we established you're
a Jones.
You're Jones.
You're a Jones. And that's a good point because absolutely, I'm 48. 48 is very different from 60. And I understand that. 48 is different from 35. So, I mean, I understand what you're saying.
It doesn't get any easier.
No. And this makes sense, though. Like, the Zennials are the ones that are going to be the make it or break it over the next 4 years. Yeah.
Just a wang or play on Pong.
Yeah. Huh? Oh.
I had a compact that was like a fucking nuclear briefcase.
Yeah. I played Pong only because somebody else had it. And it was obviously later than when it came out. But 60, you're not Jen Jones? I thought Jen Jones was like 57 to 64, 65.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Oh, Soleil Moon Fry. Yes.
I saw her one day in the Dresden room.
Huh?
I met her one day at the Dresden room.
Oh.
She was with the guy who played Zed from Pulp Fiction. He just passed away.
Oh.
They were dating.
Really? I did not know that. All right, let's get into who was part of the Gilded Generation, the Xers of the Civil War era. So they were the reactive. There were 17 million of them. They were 28% immigrant, 10% slave. Sample members, birth and death. We have Boss Tweed. There's a good TV show about Boss Tweed over on Paramount Plus. Stonewall Jackson, Roscoe Conkling, Levi Strauss, giving us the genes. Emily Dickinson, Mother Jones, Louisa May Alcott was always a big one for me. She wrote Little Women.
Emily Dickinson's huge.
Yeah, Emily Dickinson's a big one. Andrew Carnegie, Mark Twain, J.P. Morgan, Wild Bill Hickok, John Wilkes Booth, John D. Rockefeller, George Custer, Thomas Nash. Look at this. Oliver Wendell Holmes. let's see. They were the plurality in the House between 1869 and 1893, so they took over power after the Civil War. Plurality in the Senate was between 1873 and 1903. So this generation guided our country post-Civil War through the industrialization into the 20th century. They were the majority of the Supreme Court between 1890 and 1910. The U.S. presidents from this generation included Ulysses S. Grant, Rutherford B. Hayes, Chester Arthur, James Garfield, Benjamin Harrison, and Grover Cleveland. Prominent foreign peers: Henrik Ibsen, Maximilian, Lewis Carroll, Alfred Nobel, and Paul Cézanne. This is very interesting to me. All right, let's see. History and life cycle. While this generation was between the age of 0 and 15, they had the economic panic of 1837. Spiritual fervor recedes. I love this right here. From age 3 to 23, travel volume peaks along the freaking Oregon Trail.
And they all died of dysentery. Yes, we are the Oregon Trail generation.
We are the Oregon Trail generation, and that's the Zennials, baby.
Oh, I played it too.
Yeah, I know. But I just love that. When I read that, I was like, no way.
My secret was always killing the buffalo.
Yeah.
Gotta kill them buffaloes and make enough money to kill the buffalo.
You do. Yeah.
Don't spend too long on the buffaloes, because then it's about
Oh man. 6 to 26, U.S. wins Mexican War, Irish immigration, and the California Gold Rush.
Yeah, that can't be that one. Not just the Mexican War, but the Gold Rush, and that really opened us up.
Well, and you could also compare that to the .com boom in the late 1990s.
Absolutely.
Because we were in our 20s, teens and 20s, and that's when it was happening out in California. So, I mean, that would be the gold rush of our time. So I love that. Then what is the Know Nothing movement?
That was when, like, remembering my history correctly, I believe it was a time period where intellectualism was shunned, and
let's see what Grok says. The Know Nothing movement, also known as the Know Nothing Party, was a prominent nativist political movement and short-lived political party in the United States during the 1840s and especially the 1850s. It was driven by strong anti-immigrant and particularly anti-Catholic sentiment amid a massive wave of immigration, mainly from Ireland, those fleeing the potato famine, and Germany. The movement originated from secret societies like the Order of the Star-Spangled Banner, which expanded into lodges across major cities. Members were instructed to deny knowledge of the group if questioned by outsiders. It's like freaking Fight Club. Replying simply, "I know nothing," hence the mocking nickname Know Nothings that stuck and became the popular name. Officially, it evolved into the Native American Party and then the American Party by the mid-1850s. At its peak in 1854 to 1856, the party achieved surprising electoral success, capitalizing on fears that Catholic immigrants, especially Irish Catholics, threatened Protestant American values, jobs, and political control through alleged papal influence or Romanist conspiracies. It appealed to native-born Protestants, including many former Whigs, disillusioned by the collapse of their party and divisions over slavery. Key platform and beliefs: severe restrictions on immigration, a lengthy residence requirement for citizenship, exclusion of foreign-born citizens from voting or holding public office. My God, is it 2026? Exclusion, bans on Catholics in certain public roles, other nativist goals like mandatory Protestant Bible readings in public schools, blah, 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 blah. Rise and peak. 1854 to 1855 was their peak, electing governors in several states and sending dozens of congressmen to Washington. They declined, collapsed rapidly after 1856 due to internal divisions over slavery, lack of strong national leadership, and inexperienced local figures. The rise of the Republican Party, which absorbed many anti-slavery know-nothings and shifted focus to abolitionism. There you go.
I think I must have been thinking the 50s movement with
Yeah, that was interesting though. That was thanks for that question. So yeah, that was good. Yep, the first rule of Fight Club is that you don't talk about Fight Club. It was the political Fight Club.
By the way, I don't know if you noticed G Freely.
Oh my gosh, G Freely. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh. Well, we got to give him some applause on that one.
Yeah.
Thank you. For those of you that just got memberships from G Freely, who is freaking awesome, I do have a members only stream on the first Sunday of every month. We just had it a couple nights ago. So you get a free bonus member stream. And then we also have, you get badges by your name. You get first priority on comment replies and, little fun emojis and things like that. So thank you very much, everybody.
Woo.
Yay! 30 days to use your gifted memberships. Congrats. That's amazing. Oh, thank you. I super appreciate it. This is awesome. This is so much fun. I hope you guys are enjoying this topic. I just think this is fascinating. And I like talking about this kind of stuff more than I like talking about like specific politics because I find that to be dumb. I like this kind of stuff. So history and culture.
Cody says that it'll be interesting to see how these millennials have energy you have at 60 that you have in 50s and late 40s. Yeah.
Right. We're about to go through a bitchin' decade here, like one way or the other. My 50s are going to be lit.
I mean, the good thing is that we're all living better through technology and pharmaceuticals. So,
right.
I mean, we're all getting healthier. We're all on the good drugs, and
Yep.
and we're all going to be getting our Ozempics here pretty soon. And,
dude, I've been thinking about getting Ozempic, and I hate to even say that, but I've got to lose some weight. I had the biggest I've ever been in my life, but I don't know if I want to be that guy that's like, I'm just gonna give myself a shot of drugs and that'll help me lose weight. I don't know.
So I was diagnosed with early onset diabetes in December.
Oh no!
And I got metformin, and ever since then, my weight has dropped. I've dropped like 15 to 20 pounds in 2 months, and I can get on Ozempic, but I'm not sure I want to.
Right.
Because I'm like also not hungry, and I'm just eating much better too. So
that's what Ozempic does. Is pretty much suppress your appetite to nothing. Yeah.
But I'm not on it yet. My appetite's already
with your diabetic drugs. Yeah.
Yeah, with the diabetic drugs, and also just changing up my diet too. So,
right.
I think, and if I can do it, anyone can do it, because I just don't want to do anything. But do it before they tell you have to, because it does suck when they tell you they have to. Like, if you have the opportunity to do it now, do it now. But,
yeah,
it's in it looks, and I get it. I still have to go for a colonoscopy too.
You're pro Manjaro. Manjaro is the one that I was actually looking at taking. The best version. Huh. I don't know. Yeah.
My friend from high school, who was the smartest dude I know, is retiring. We graduated in the same class. He's retiring from Pfizer.
Ooh, I mean, that's a good pension.
Yeah, he's going to live the rest of his life going snorkeling and taking pictures of fish.
Yeah.
And he's going to love the rest of his life and laugh at the rest of us who are, he's a smart man.
Have I ever had my A1? I don't even know what that is. No,
nope.
I don't deal with doctors and hospitals and medicine. I haven't been to the doctor in
A1C is
probably 20 years.
That's the indicator for diabetes.
Ah, gotcha.
If you're at like a 8 or higher, I think you're.
Right. Is your microphone beeping, or is your smoke alarm chirping? Because we get constant chirps from your end. I couldn't tell if it's a constant chirp. So I was trying to figure out if it was your mic or your.
Oh, weird.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. No, I just wanted to make sure it was. Yeah. I didn't know if her mic volume was turned up a little too high. We're getting like little squeaks and chirps. Maybe it was a chair. Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Probably a chair. Yeah.
All right. Sorry about that.
No, don't apologize. I was just pointing it out that I was like, what is that squeaking? All right.
Remember Nickelodeon had the big help. We all pledged our commitment to helping others and saving the planet. We can't give up now. Yeah.
We can't give up. I was part of Hands Across America, damn it. Okay. Oh crap. Sorry. My standing desk just started to rise. I must have pushed a button. I was like, what's going on? Okay, I love this.
It's great for virtual improv when you want to. I'm on a thinking ship now.
Yep. It's like, oh no, I'm drowning. I'm sorry, guys.
The room is stretching.
Okay, we're gonna stop being silly. Oh, I love you too. Okay. All right, let's wrap this up. We're almost 2 hours into this, and I got other things to do. I'm sure everybody else does too. Okay, but I did want to get into this real quick. Okay, yeah, I'm getting a lot of noise. Oh, it must have been the desk motor. Okay, now we're good. Okay. Let me make this a little bit larger. Okay. Uh-oh. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know what happened. I lost connection to my camera.
Oh no.
I don't know what happened. It says you can click the camera button to try again. Okay. Hold on, everybody. There we go. Wait, is that the wrong camera? That's my webcam. Hold on. Sorry, everyone. Small technical difficulties.
I'll vamp.
Dang it.
Sesame Street is on YouTube now. That's
what?
So weird. It is.
That's weird.
Not everything though.
Okay, I don't know what's going on with my camera, but it's not connecting. I know, but it's my webcam. It's not my good camera. I know that's silly to even worry about. All right. Well, we'll just go with that camera. All right. Let me finish this up. Okay.
Hit by pain.
Yep, hit by pain and hard luck that seemed to justify all the critics. The Gilded suffered from low collective self-esteem. I'm nobody. Who are you? Are you nobody too? But Emily Dickinson's peers were nobody's fools. In their eyes, the central lesson of history was the devastation that inner passion can inflict on the outer world. They became skeptics, trusting principle less than instinct and experience. As a rule, we disbelieve all facts and theories for which we have no use, wrote William James, who popularized pragmatism as a philosophy based on truth's cash value. The Gilded played for keeps and asked for no favors. Their motto, as General Grant put it, was to strike as hard as you can and as often as you can and keep on moving. That sounds like freaking strike first, strike hard, no mercy, Cobra Kai. That's what it sounded like to me. This camera angle is going to drive me nuts. Okay, hold on. That's a little bit better. Okay. So that's one thing that I wanted. That made me think of Cobra Kai when I read that. Gilded facts really quick. From youth to elderhood, the Gilded were more likely to die or fall into destitution than their parents at like age. They were also more likely to make a fortune starting out from nothing. According to C. Wright Mills, a larger share of their business elite came from lower or lower middle class backgrounds than was the case in any earlier or later generation, including Carnegie, Rockefeller, Jay Gould, James J. Hill, Leland Stanford, and Charles Crocker. That's interesting. With traditional apprenticeships dwindling in an era of rapid industrialization and cheap immigrant labor, many Gilded youth took to the streets and became the first generation of urban criminal gangs. By the 1840s, their violence prompted elders to organize the first big city police forces and establish the first reform schools. If the reform school differed at all from adult prisons, observes historian Joseph Kett, it was because children could be shipped off to the former, not just for crimes, but for general vagrancy and stubbornness.
Yeah, we don't like you. We're going to get rid of you.
Yeah, we're going to put you there. The Gilded included a larger share of immigrants, 28%, than any other American generation since colonial times. To the East Coast came the first large influx of Irish Catholics, triggered by the Irish potato famine of the late 1840s. To the West Coast came the Chinese, hired on as laborers for the Union Pacific Railroad. Suffering worsening nutrition as children, the adult height of the Gilded declined from first cohort to last. This is interesting. Worsening nutrition as children, the adult height of the Gilded generation declined from first cohort to last. They got shorter.
Wow.
Later in life, the quest for protein became a generational obsession. The Gilded include America's best-known cannibals, the Donner Party survivors, and Al Packer, the founder of the King Ranch, the first Texas to Abilene cattle drivers, the first large-scale meat packers, and by the 1880s, the midlife beneficiaries of plunging beef prices. Interesting. Shunning the lithe, the transcendental physique, the aging Gilded celebrated the rotund body and the Delmonico steak dinner as a mark of success. In 1907, when the youngest Gilded had entered elderhood, U.S. life expectancy at age 65 declined to the shortest span ever measured, under 11 years. So by the time they hit 65, they were only expected to make another 10 to 11 years. So 75 was the absolute latest. Throughout their life cycle, the Gilded defined today's image of the Western adventurer. This is a good one. Throughout their life cycle, the Gilded defined today's image of the Western adventurer. From the youthful 49er and Pony Express rider before the Civil War, to the midlife rancher, cowboy, the bad man, and Indian fighter of the 1870s, to the grizzled old mountaineer of 1900. Gilded blacks included the first large population of American mulattoes, many presumably the children of white compromiser fathers. The slave generation that suffered most at the hands of white owners, increasingly fearful of rebellion, the most celebrated 1850s era slave fugitives, and during the Civil War, the soldiers and officers of the first black regiments in North America. In the Reconstruction years, 15 Gilded blacks were elected to Congress, a greater number than from any later generation until the silent. That's very interesting. So there we go. Is there anything else that I wanted to throw out there before we stopped? We didn't even really get into the next generation, and I guess that's kind of the point of this whole thing, was how they changed. But I like the question better of, will our generation become the Civics? I like that. I like that question. That was a good question. That was a good discussion. I like that. Is there anything else that I haven't covered that you want to cover before we stop?
No, I'm good.
You're good?
Yeah,
Okay.
we got it.
Okay.
For the evening.
Yep. Anybody else in the chat? Is there anything else that you want to bring up that we haven't covered?
Lots to look forward to. I do. The Gilded generation and the Gen Xers, really, that parallel is really crazy. So
It is. It's very interesting.
I do think we should start next week on maybe just going a little bit over on how, that one generation sucks up transforms and moves into the next category.
Okay, so how the Gilded transformed into the Civics?
Yeah, I think
that?
it would be interesting to just even touch on a little bit so that we can see, are there parallels?
Right.
Is it going to happen that way? Or is it going to be the millennials who change? Or are we going to be on the regular cycle?
Okay, I like that.
The thing is we're living in crazy times right now.
We are. We're living in history, baby. We are living in times that they're going to be reading about.
We're going to look back on this week and go, well, yeah, this is when shit happened.
Yeah. Like they said, like Howe said before we started, some decades was it nothing happens, and then some years decades happen or something like that, which was attributed to Stalin.
2020, 2025 through 26 so far.
Mm-hmm.
2016. I mean,
it's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so next week, guys, we're gonna wrap up the Civil War cycle next week and talk more about which generation is going to become the Civics. Is it Gen X? Is it Millennials? Is it Z? Or is it Gen X or Millennials? Or will Civic get skipped? And then we will get into the Great Power Cycle, which is the next the next seculum or the first one of the 20th century. So
Right.
that will be next week.
Yeah, and that's going to really lay the groundwork for where we are now.
Yeah. My goal is to be done with this book by the end of March and start April with 13th Gen. But that might be a little bit too lofty of a goal. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, we see how we do.
Right. But I really want to get into the fourth turning. So I really want to keep moving here,
For sure.
I'm in my PJs, by the way. I don't know if anybody knows this, but I'm in my PJs.
Yeah, I was wearing my alma mater shirt.
I like it. Usually I'm wearing a KU shirt, but I was having a hot flash before we started, and so I didn't want to wear a tank top, so I was like, I'm gonna put my PJ top on because I like the material and it's so cool, and I'm not sweating so bad. So that's why I'm in my PJs tonight. I got a new PJ shirt, so there you go.
Can you post my link in the chat?
Oh yeah. Did you send it to me? Oh, I see it.
Yeah, that's just my link tree if you want to know who
Okay.
I am. What I am doing, I got all my socials and what have you.
I've always wanted to make a link tree. I don't even know how to do it. There's Grendelson's link tree.
Pretty
wait, cool. I might have messed that up. Hold on, let me try that again. I got the timestamp in it. That wasn't on purpose.
Yeah, we're Gen X. They can figure it out.
Right. I'm really good at just messing shit up.
I have a question for people for next week.
Oh yeah, ask away.
When was the first time you guys touched technology? Like, when was your first memory of playing with a computer, or
Ooh, that's
a
good
big one. Playing with a computer, something like that.
I can speak to that for just to kind of get the ball rolling for next week. Hold on, I'm trying to paste this link and it's not letting me. Open link, copy link address. Thank you. Good Lord. Okay. Yes, I love technology. My dad bought an Apple IIc in 1988.
Wow.
Around then. So that was the first.
You see in 88. Wow.
Yeah, that was the first computer that we had in the house. Was the Apple IIc. We had an Atari 5200 for Christmas in 1982 or 83, one of those years. So that was my first technology type things in my house that I remember. How about you?
So my parents had some friends who were like early adopters of everything. They worked for the phone company.
Oh,
and they were dinks. They had no kids at that time.
Gotcha.
He had a pinball machine in his house.
Oh.
And he had the first VCR I ever saw.
Oh.
And we're talking 1976.
Damn, that was early.
Yeah, I remember going to his house and watching the Muppets on VHS, and then going, "What is Swedish erotica?" And then they said, "Go play pinball." He had an Apple II, like the original Apple II.
Oh wow!
79, and let me play with that.
Crazy.
I had an Atari 2600, and then I had a Commodore 64.
Okay, we had I went to a private school in junior high, but our in sixth grade we got a Commodore 64 to play Oregon Trail on.
Yeah,
and so we had a Commodore at school. There was two of them, which was a big deal. So we had that. That was around 86. Hey, no sucking at Jayhawks. Easy there. But and then my dad bought a video camera / VCR around 84, 85. But it was it had the camera and then it had a VCR with a strap on it that you held it on your shoulder and you connected the camera to the VCR in order to record. And so you recorded it on like regular VHS tapes. Yeah.
I remember those. They were huge.
They were huge. So that was the first with tech. Guys, I think this has been a great discussion tonight. I've had a great time. I don't know about you, Nelson, but this has been good.
Yeah. I know. I love it.
Awesome sauce. All right. So next week we will wrap up the Civil War cycle and we will burn through the what's the next one? The Great Power Cycle? Yes, the Great Power Cycle, which is the first. Yeah. And then we're gonna get into the and then the following week we will get into the present day, the millennial cycle. What? That's gonna be fun. So yeah. Oh my goodness, I'm getting some G Freely, thank you so much. Thank you for the $10. Oh my gosh. Thank you. +1 grandma man. $10. Yay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the super chats and for the gifted memberships. I super appreciate that. Amazing. You touched a boob during Back to the Future? Well, good for you. Trying to think of where I got my boob touched for the first time. That was way later after Back to the Future, I can tell you that.
Mine was during a touch football game.
Oh, nice. I remember, but it was I don't remember what we were watching. Anyways, that's not what we're going to talk about. All right. Everybody have a great night. Thanks for hanging out with us on the book club. We will see you next Tuesday night. For those of you that are interested, over on the Discord tomorrow night, we are watching Little House on the Prairie. And on Thursday night, we were watching Incredible Hulk. So come hang out with us. And then Monday night, we have a double feature on movie night. We're doing Hackers and The Money Pit. So that's our double feature for Monday nights.
I wanted to get the V last night, but I didn't make it.
Oh, yeah, we watched The Last of V last night. It was good. We're going to do Final Battle soon. So,
in the 80s, I ran the San Diego V fan club.
Shut the front door. That's amazing.
My address got listed in Starlog magazine. People sent me money from all over the country.
That's amazing. Uh-oh, I'm getting eloped with or kidnapped. That's not good. What can you do?
That's the rest of it, I guess.
All right. Everybody have a great night. I will see you all next week for book club. Thank you, Grendelson. Appreciate ya.
Peace out.
Bye-bye.